Hey y'all, Zelda here. I am excited to share some news. Not that I have a ton of people waiting on this, but I'm just excited to express this, to put this out in the world, and to talk about how I want to hold this process over the next few months. My spouse and I have decided that we are going to move to Europe. And that's a pretty big statement in terms of like vague. Right now, my spouse is a French national. They are French and American. They have lived in the US. We have visited France. All of their family lives in France. So we are going to land. We're moving to France in September. And we are moving there, and I hesitate to say like we're moving to France because we are moving there. We're going to do some documentation, some technical things that we need to take care of. And then we may plan on going to Spain as well as traveling around to see if there's anywhere else that we would like to live. But we are going to be landing in France, flying from Boston to Paris in September, in the first week of September. And yeah, today I want to talk about how we arrived at this decision, not in a super in-depth way, because I don't necessarily want to say that I'm not in any way trying to like sell this process to anyone else, nor to justify it, just like wanting to kind of share and document my experience with it, as well as the fact that I want to kind of set the groundwork for doing a little bit of vlogging to engage with this process in an intentional way. It is something that I am nervous and excited about. It is something that we have been talking about for about a year and have talked a little bit about in the past as well. It is like because my spouse is French, we've been together almost 11 years now. It does feel like it was always like a background option of like, yeah, like maybe you should get your passport. They also have British citizenship and Swiss citizenship, I believe, just based on their like immediate family. Their mom is French, dad is British. Both of them are naturalized US citizens. I am American, so I don't have a dual nationality, but can apply for visas as the spouse of an EU citizen, essentially in any of the EU countries. And it's just something that we were thinking about. It is something that was spurred more quickly because of the US's most recent presidential election. And that did instigate us talking and thinking about it a little bit more specifically because of changes to health insurance for my spouse who like currently is uninsured, like doesn't have medical insurance, which is like a big driving decision of like deciding to do it now, as well as the fact that we're both non-binary and queer, even though we do have like cis and cis het passing privilege essentially in certain instances. That is less, I think that is a factor, but it wasn't like an immediate necessity factor, as well as the fact that the work I do is very explicitly like libertarian, queer centric, and like just doing different types of trauma-informed care because I do it in a remote context. It's not necessarily that I'm like pinned down to being in one place while I do it. Like I can serve the community that I am a part of while being located in other places and traveling because I work fully remotely. So that is a big driving decision of how we kind of arrived at that being something. And we really wanted to talk about, for us, that it felt valuable that we wanted to move towards something, not just away from something. We didn't want to do it just out of fear or feeling like uncertain of how we were going to stay and fight and make things work. And I will say that I personally have had a lot of like values conflict internally of, does it feel like the right thing to go? It is a huge amount of privilege to be able to immigrate and move somewhere else. I also have a lot of value around, being a contributing member of a community. So I don't want to like live a digital nomad life where I feel like not tied down to any community. Even though I do have the capacity to work remotely, I want to feel like integrated and eventually find somewhere where I can like put down roots and really feel like a sense of contribution and mutuality and reciprocity with the community. So those are things that are very important to me. Some of the things that we're excited about and looking forward to are getting to spend time with my spouse's French family, which we haven't gotten to connect as much with living in Colorado. It's just a long way, so we don't see them very often. Being able to travel around Europe is exciting for us. It's something that we've always wanted to do more of, but it's really challenging to do with our pets. And so moving our animals over there and being able to like do road trips or travel by train and things like that are really exciting for us to experience new things, try new foods, learn new languages, have a different pace of life. I think that there is some aspect of that. Also the, investing in a social structure that has things like national health care is really important. I said that that's one of the driving factors. It's something that feels kind of like a no-brainer in the decision and has really kind of like moved along the process because it's something that we really care about. But yeah. So some of the dreams that we have, I did make like a little list so that I didn't get like too circuitous with how I was sharing about it, is that I'm excited to learn French and to improve my Spanish. I do speak Spanish pretty well, but I would like to get up to fluency and feel really comfortable with that like I did when I was younger. And I would like to learn French to be able to communicate better with my spouse's family, who primarily speaks French, even though, their mom speaks some English very well, fluently. So it hasn't been like absolutely necessary, but still it would be nice. I would like to learn that. I would also love to learn other languages, but I'm putting that aside until I feel confident with French and Spanish. But it would be really fun to learn other languages. I'd love to learn Italian, would love to learn, just other languages in general, I guess, depending on where we enjoy being, So traveling, having healthcare is something I'm looking forward to, integrating into a new community and culture. I love learning about different cultures, and have felt very resonant with different values in different places besides the US. I have lived abroad before. I lived in Chile for a year when I was younger, and I really loved that. And I remember having a lot of like culture shock, so to speak, coming back to the US, and even then questioning, like, I'm not sure if I want to live here forever. I lived in a lot of different states. So I lived in a lot of different parts of the US growing up. We never lived anywhere really longer than 3 years. Even if it was in the same state, we'd move like to a different city or a different house, sometimes more often than that. And so I didn't have a huge sense of rooted or groundedness anywhere in the US until I moved to Colorado. And I moved here for undergrad and essentially like never left. So I've been here a while now, 13 years, I think. Yeah, a long time. It feels like hard to imagine that it's actually been that long, but I'm really feeling that as we talk about leaving. I'm feeling the grief and the reality of saying goodbye, even though we do have the opportunity where we like could come back if we wanted to. Based on the fact that our work is remote, that my spouse has a lot of connections to work here. I have family who lives in Colorado. So it's not like we couldn't come back if we wanted to, but there is a reality of like, even if we come back, it won't be exactly the same. We'd have to reintegrate into our friend communities. We'd have to start over essentially here. And it is something that when we were thinking about doing this at this point in our life, that it kind of felt like a good time to have that adventure. It is also something that we've been talking about potentially wanting to start a family, and that's something that we would prefer to do in a place that has different values than in the US and a different like family orientation, family life balance almost. Like when we were in Spain, we went to visit Spain in February because we were already deciding if that would be a good place. And we did really we went to Bilbao and we really liked it. And one thing that we noticed is that there were people everywhere with their kids. Like kids were in lots of public spaces, that families were there with their kids at the playground until later at night, and that it just seemed like more integrated into the community. It's not that there aren't a lot of playgrounds, but I just feel like family culture is a little bit more isolated, a little bit more nuclear, so to speak, that like nuclear family dynamic. And it just feels a little different. Like public transportation is more kid friendly. There just is this sense of feeling more integrated, feeling like, it also is a huge benefit for us in terms of public safety, for there to be like less firearms. I mean, when we live in Colorado, like I feel like everywhere in the US, like shootings are scary and things like that. So there are lots of motivating factors. I am setting the stage for wanting to talk through the process of how we're doing this, in part because I've really valued watching videos of other people doing this for different reasons. What I don't want to do is pretend to be an expert on something that I am not an expert on. I am fumbling my way through this process. My spouse and I are, fumbling our way through this process the best we can with the resources that we have available. And those are going to be resources that are not available to all. Like we only have our experience to go off of. And realistically, we have we have a lot of privilege in how we're navigating this, especially like my spouse being a dual citizen. It is so much easier for us to go through this process than someone who just decides they want to move abroad and needs to find a visa that they are applicable for. That's going to ease a lot of our process and doesn't seem as applicable to people who don't have that ease of that ease through the process. We also have like some savings. Like it's expensive. Like one of the things I didn't realize was how expensive this process would be. And we're not even like fully through the process. But for instance, we are bringing our animals with us. We have 2 dogs and 1 cat. And one of the dogs is Evie, my service dog, this is a big stressor for me, is that she is not ADI certified. She is, very well trained. I trained her when she was a puppy. She was trained by someone else, and then I adopted her partway through her training process and did the rest of the training myself. But because of that, she's not ADI certified, and that is a really important certification for service animals in the EU and in other countries. So I will be able to get her there because the ADA covers the flights to and from the US, but I won't be able to fly with her there, and she won't be like a EU trained like service dog, I guess. I'm still trying to figure out the details of that, but that change is really anxiety inducing for me. I mean, having Evie has really radically transformed my life. There are so many things I can do now that I used to need medication for, so many ways in which my life has like opened up more. And it is very nerve-wracking to think about that being more difficult in a different place. There's also the reality that like I have to find all new medical providers. I have a lot of chronic health things. And even though we're moving because my spouse doesn't have access to insurance, I have had access to insurance. And it is scary to think about starting over and having to do that in a totally new place, in a totally new language. I'm nervous about it. I'm really going to miss my acupuncturist. I'm really going to miss my therapist. I'm really going to miss, my OBGYN. So there's like ways in which I feel like I'm also really going to miss my friends and my direct community, that even if I don't see them all the time, I feel like I see them regularly enough that I feel a sense of connectedness. I'm also really going to miss the ecosystem. I really love the land and the ecosystem and the environment in Colorado. I've been here so long that I really feel like I know plants when I see them. I know trees. I feel connected. I have like a sense of like foraging capacity here. I know the animals that live here. I sometimes even know the specific animals that I see regularly on my walks with my dog or out my window or whatever it is, right? And I just feel a sense of I'm going to really miss that. I'm feeling a sense of grief of leaving that behind. And I'm also feeling simultaneously a sense of excitement of getting to discover and experience that in a new place. So right now, our current focus is that now that we have decided where we're going to land, we were big like in the air of like whether we wanted to go to France first to do some of this like technical stuff, or whether we wanted to land in Spain and then just like go visit family for a little while in France to like see everyone and kind of get grounded. And it just makes more sense, I think, to start in France. One of the things we learned was that we got married in Colorado and we self-solemnized, which is something that Colorado allows, but France does not acknowledge that as a real marriage. So we have to get remarried or like renew our vows at the consulate. So that's like a really difficult process. I'm also right now focused on like requesting all of my documents and getting them apostilled, which is not a thing in the US really that you need to do. It's like a different type of notary that only the Secretary of State of the state in which the document was issued can do. And European, especially like French and Spanish, I guess they like all need their documents apostilled, and they all need them in this like really tight time frame. Like they can't be older than 3 months, but then it like takes a whole month basically to get this whole process. So you have to do it before you leave. So it just is such a headache. I'm also not good at forms, so I'm really anxious about filling out all of these forms in a language that I am not comfortable or familiar with, which is another benefit of having family in the place that we are landing. The other primary stressor right now is getting our pets all ready to go, even though Evie is going to be able to be on the plane and fly with me, which she flies with me normally. So she's very used to that process. And the flight is not super long. I fly really regularly from Colorado to the East Coast, like Colorado to Boston. And the flight is like 4.5 hours, and it's really common. She's like very easy. And the flight to to France is, I think, 6 to 7, like high 6 hours, maybe 7 hours total. She's going to be fine. I'm not worried about her in that way. I mean, I am a little worried because we haven't done it yet, but I'm not worried in terms of like, I know that she is capable of that. Sesame, our other dog, is going to have to go in cargo, and we have explored every other option available under the sun. It feels like we were thinking for a while there's like a cruise you can take, which like I'm not a big fan of cruises, but there is a cruise that you can take with your animals. But we realized that you have to book the kennel for the dogs or cats or your animals 2 years in advance, and they don't even have tickets that far in advance. So it just is like unfeasible. We're not planning our trip 2 years in advance. So it's just like not reasonable for us to have that kind of timeline. But there is one. So if you want to move in 2 years, look into it now. You got to book your kennel so far in advance. So we looked at that option. There's also options where you can like charter a private jet essentially and like or do that with other animal owners, but it is so exorbitantly expensive to do these options, and we just do not have access to the financial capacity to pay for that. It's just too expensive for us to be able to afford it. And so there are some limitations, right? Like anything, we have the financial privilege and savings to be able to do this move at all, which is a lot more than I think some people have. But realistically, we have to do it in a way where we're mindful of our limitations so that we are able to have a buffer for finding a place to live there, right? And so we are going to have Sesame ride in cargo. We have to book, we've just booked our appointments to get like our European pet passports where they're going to get microchipped, and each animal, including our cat, is going to get that. And so that's going to be happening in the next couple weeks. And then we're figuring out doing our vow renewals at the consulate. And then the last thing is kind of figuring out, we just bought our tickets for actually going. And then the next step that we're kind of focused on figuring out is like living situation once we get there. I've been really getting our documents and stuff in order. And then we also have to figure out like, what are we going to bring with us? So a big thing that we have decided is that we have the ability to leave a lot of stuff here for now. And so we're going to go and rent, somewhere smaller probably, where I still have room to work, because I will still be working remotely as a therapist, which I've been doing already. I will just work at a different time of day because of the time change. They are also going to work remotely for their job, doing like climate, like wildfire mitigation and climate resiliency and are going to do that more in like a grant writing type of capacity. And so we both have a lot of flexibility with that. So we don't need to worry as much about like finding work right away or anything like that, because we will be able to work essentially as digital nomads in that way. Yeah. I think that's it for now. That's what we're focused on. And so over the next few months, some of the things that we're going to be doing are, trying to go through and get rid of stuff that we know we don't want to keep, trying to figure out what we want to bring with us, starting to look at places to live, and getting all of our life situated, right? And saying goodbye to the people that we love for now. Our goal is hopefully to have a place within a year or so that people can come visit us, but it's just a really big change. So that's something that we've decided that I'm excited to share a little bit about the experience with you. If that's something that interests you, great. If not, I share about other things on other videos, and so that's totally fine. But it is a really big, scary experience that I don't want to forget about going through. I think that with so many things, I go through them and then I have this feeling of like I have no idea how I did that. I don't like remember in the middle of it because it was so stressful. And with this, I'm really trying to be very grateful that we have the capacity to have an adventure like this, to feel grateful for the time in our life that is allowing us and the resources that are allowing us to take this step, for our circumstances being so aligned where we both like can work remotely and like make this change in a relatively safe way. And for the potential. I've also been connecting a lot with my ancestors who were immigrants. My grandparents were born in the US, but my great-grandparents on my dad's side immigrated from Finland, and on my mom's side from Italy. And so there is a lot of like recent history of immigration in my not too distant past. And I just think about the fact that every time I'm like panicking and can look something up online and make all these lists of the things that we need to do and be so overwhelmed that like essentially they just like got on a boat with their kids and the things they could carry and moved somewhere new because they felt like there was something there for them, or they had to leave somewhere else. And so I've just been really connecting with the fact that immigration is a very human experience, and that it's very normal to change locations actually, and that it's something that I feel like my lineage has a lot of resiliency around this quality, and that I can bring my own skills to this in a value-oriented way. I want to have adventures. I want to experience new things. I'm excited to go on this adventure with my spouse and to be a team in a different kind of way. And I'm excited to get curious about being very intentional and building community and having the kind of life that I want to live, while still being a good member of all of the communities that I am a part of, including the one in Colorado that I care very much for and want to be a very contributing member of, even when I am not residing here. Since I do plan on coming back and visiting family and friends, and I do plan on, voting and doing, like there are lots of things that, and I will still work with clients in Colorado because I am licensed in Colorado. So there's a lot that I am figuring out how to like be grounded in while also expansive, and yeah, it's big. It's a big decision. It feels impossible to know all of the challenges ahead of time. And it feels like we're constantly making decisions that we don't know if they're the right decision. And as soon as we make it, we realize we needed another piece of information. And it's just, it's a lot. It's really overwhelming. But I want to be grateful, and I don't want to miss it. So I want to spend time talking about it, verbally processing about it, thinking about it, tracking it. And I'd love it if you wanted to experience it with me a little bit too. And maybe I'll be able to do a little bit of like actual vlogging, like little clips of things when we experience new things on our trips, because that will be a fun way for me to learn how to edit together some clips, since, being able to spend time creating more content that is therapy oriented, spiritually oriented, but even like life style type of oriented of our move and our process does feel like a fun side creative endeavor for me to engage in addition to, my work as a therapist and my writing and creative projects. So yeah. I would love to know if you have moved abroad before, if you have moved internationally to a different country. Is there anything that you wish that you had thought about or known before you did it, since we are not moving until September, so we have a little time, or anything that you're curious about if you're planning on this type of move? I would love to know, since I'm just doing the best I can. So any tips are super welcome. Okay, bye for now.